104.5 The Team, your home for New York sports, and thanks to our friends at Tech East Fire and Water Restoration, your best way back to normal. Visit them online at tefirewater.com. Our buddy Buster Olney with us. Buster, I am tickled pink over the way this Yankees-Astros matchup has gone so far this season. Are you seeing anything deeper than just a couple wins for the Yankees?
No, I think that we kind of are where we were last fall, the two teams in that ALCS, I know, you probably spent all winter lying in the fetal position after losing that, but they were two pretty evenly matched teams. It was a coin flip series. It still feels that way. The one larger development that we've seen, in my eyes, is how Luis Severino is sort of growing in stature. Going into that playoff game last year, the American League wild card game, it was the first time where he was the ace, he was the guy in the big game, and we talked last fall about how he was hyperventilating in the bullpen when he was warming up to face the Twins. And so for the rest of the postseason, he was learning how to deal with that adrenaline. In these two starts against the Astros, with the first one that he made down in Houston where the bullpen was in trouble and he needed to step up and he threw a complete game. And then the game that he pitched against them on Wednesday, man, does he have mound presence now. It's clear that, the various advantages for each of the teams when they face each other, an advantage potentially for the Astros against the Yankees is their starting pitching. But on a given day, it doesn't matter if Luis Severino faces a Justin Verlander or a Charlie Morton or a Garrett Cole, he can go toe-to-toe with anybody. He's become that good. He's become that I think that comfortable with his own skin as he learns about the responsibility of being the number one guy.
Buster, Olney with us. Look, I love where Severino's at right now, but when you say he can go toe to toe with this guy, there is that glaring missing part of that rotation. It's weird that I look around the league and I think the guys who have the pieces to move to the Yankees and the Yankees have what they need, sadly, are the Astros and the Red Sox. The Red Sox need a catcher, the Astros need bullpen, but obviously those three teams would never deal.
No, they wouldn't deal with each other now, especially given the dynamic. These are the three heavyweights, as we talked about. They're going to be eyeing each other, and they'll be competing against each other for potential help. And I think especially with bullpen help. Now, you're right, when you line up the Astros and the Yankees, and you say the Yankees clearly could use some help in the rotation. It's not exactly clear yet whether or not there's going to be someone that they'll go after. I do think that they're probably at some point, depending on how the Giants fare over the next few weeks, there will be a phone call, I think, that'll go from the Yankees to the Giants and ask, look, at any point would you ever be inclined to talk about Madison Bumgarner? Because our farm system's loaded. But I think if the Giants, continue to battle toward the top of their division, and that division is completely wide open at this point, I don't think they would ever consider doing that. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's just a stone that Brian Cashman wants to turn over at some point. But beyond that, we talked about Patrick Corbin back in April. He's really struggled in the month of May. His velocity's down. It might be that the Yankees' best chance for augmenting their pitching staff is not going to be through a rotation piece, but a bullpen piece like Kelvin Herrera, which, by the way, could potentially keep him out of the hands of both the other two superpowers.
I like that plan.
Yeah, I think even the tease of Madison Bumgarner is exciting for Yankee fans. Buster, what's impressed you the most about the young Gleyber Torres?
His approach at the plate, and I thought more about it this week, and I want to make 100% clear, I am not comparing Gleyber Torres with Derek Jeter in terms of what he's accomplished in his career. But what I am comparing, Levack, I think you'll back me up on this, the approach at the plate is so much like Derek, it's remarkable. How many times do we see Derek Jeter against a really good pitcher, seemingly, overmatched at times, and then what would he do? He'd shoot a single to right field. He'd punch a single into center field. He'd take the ball the other way. It's such a simple approach, and yet it works so well in big spots. And we saw it the other night when he had the walk-off hit. And in some respects, if you have an approach like that and you stick with it, it's almost slump-proof. Even, as I say, against good pitchers, whether you're 0 for 10 or you're 8 for 10, man, that will play. That will work, especially in big spots. And Derek, I think, always deserved a ton of credit for how he did in the postseason. He got a ton of credit for it. But I thought that had less to do with his personality than that great, simple approach that he had at the plate.
Buster, only with us from, thanks to our friends at Tech East Fire and Water Restoration. I'm glad you said that because tell me if I'm crazy, crazier. Didn't it look like the Yankees were content with base hits instead of home runs against Dallas Keuchel for like the first time they've ever faced him last night?
100%, and I love their approach. Absolutely love their approach, and some of their guys. And I do think it goes back to what we've been talking about before. I think Aaron Judge rubs off on these guys so much where, Aaron is such a tactician, and he has such a focus on each of the pitches that he has in his plate appearances. He does not like to give away an at-bat. And so if you're a Gleyber Torres and you're in the same lineup as an Aaron Judge, a Brett Gardner, and you watch their approach at the plate, that can't help but rub off. I thought their at-bats against the Astros, which a great pitching staff. And as I say, I thought it's basically been a coin flip between these two teams. I think that absolutely can play in a postseason series.
How is Aaron Judge actually more impressive this year than last year? Like, how is that happening?
Because he's learning more, and I think he's getting more comfortable with himself and getting more comfortable with the strike zone. And I do think we're starting to see signs where, when Ted Williams played, let's face it, the umpires were a little bit intimidated by him, where if they called a strike on a pitch in the corner, they were probably gauging the reaction from Ted about, oh, man, because this guy knows the strike zone so well. I think we see it with Joey Votto now with the Cincinnati Reds, where the umpires sort of follow him. And I think Aaron's going to be that type of guy. And this summer is the first time we've seen the umpires react to him and maybe give him the benefit of the doubt more and more. You guys remember that series they had against the Astros last year where he had strike calls on the inner half where it was clear the pitches were not strikes. But now I think Aaron's getting such a reputation as being a guy who knows the strike zone that the umpires might be reflexively following his lead the way they did Ted Williams.
On the other side of it, New York Mets fans, again, the injuries. What happens every single year with this New York Met franchise?
I don't know. And I'm, as you guys know, I'm the last person to talk about curses and superstitions and all that stuff. I don't believe in that stuff. But the way that it just every week, you do wonder if somewhere in the back of Mickey Callaway's mind, he's thinking, man, did I jump on board of the train that's constantly swimming upstream against this pervasive thought that the team is cursed? Because, geez, everything seems to go wrong, and there's no explanation for it. And the Matt's injury is different than the Syndergaard injury, different than what happened with Matt Harvey and what happened with Jason Isringhausen and Bill Pulsifer and on back. But my God, just every year it feels like they deal with this stuff.
Buster, you've got an article posted on your official Twitter account at Buster_ESPN about the parts of baseball that are disappearing. Yeah,
and it's basic parts of basic strategy that we've taken for granted for the year that are clearly in decline. And the reason why, and I say this not as a judgment, but just purely analytically, it's because as statistical analysis comes into the game, we're seeing teams more go for and hitters go for home runs, and on the defensive side go for strikeouts. More relievers throwing harder, so the hitters are taking bigger swings and they're striking out more. And as a result, for example, we've seen the number of stolen bases go from in 2009. There were almost 3,000, and this year we're on pace for about 2,500. So that's a decrease of about 17%. The number of pitch-outs have naturally followed that. In 2009, it was 478. This year, guys, we're on a pace for 74, okay? For all of baseball, sacrifice bunts in 2009, there were 1,635. This year, we're on a pace for about 850, cut in half. Hit and runs have dropped by about 16, 17% over the last decade. And the other day I had a conversation with a longtime manager about this. He goes, there's nothing for me to do. I changed the pitchers. But a lot of the conversations that they used to have to influence, what was happening in the game, maybe try to speed up the pace, try to do different things, try to manufacture a run, those skills are disappearing. And it's becoming sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy where because managers don't necessarily look for players to do these things, they're doing them less. And that means that the next situation that pops up, it makes it even less likely that the manager will ask him to do it. The best example of that, Jed Jerko plays with the Cardinals. He's a fine player, but he's kind of a classic example of his generation of players. 6 years in the big leagues, he doesn't have a sacrifice bunt. Alex Rodriguez had like 16, 18 sacrifice bunts in his career. Hank Aaron bunted. So did Willie Mays. Hitters these days, they don't do those. They don't have those type of skills.
Buster Olney with us on 104.5 The Team. Buster, is it one of those situations where a guy like Kevin Cash in like 3 years is going to start stealing bases, and we're going to be like they're going to take the league by surprise and it'll be back in vogue, or do you think it's really dead?
Well, I don't think it's dead. I mean, it'll always be part of the game, but it does, I think, go a long way toward explaining why everyone in baseball seems to like to watch the Braves. Right? Everyone always, wow, the Braves are exciting. They're fun to watch. Well, you know why? Because Ozzie Albies and Ronald Acuna Jr., they run the bases like crazy. They take an extra base. They steal bases. That team, generally speaking, puts the ball in play. And I do think it's interesting in recent years, whether it was the Royals in 2015 or last year the Astros or, the Cubs in 2016, these are teams that strike out less than other teams, and yet the sport continues to trend upward in strikeouts and hitters taking big swings.
Buster, this is going to shock you that I am actually going to watch a weekend baseball series that does not directly involve my Yankees, and I might actually be rooting for Houston, the Astros.
See, it does directly involve the Yankees, right? When you got the Astros and the Red Sox, as we talked about, these are the Ollie, the Frazier, and the Foreman of baseball right now, the three best teams, and they're all going to be eyeing each other all summer during the course of the year. But, yeah, we got the Astros and the Red Sox on Sunday Night Baseball. They'll be battling for the best record in the game, and that'll play out. And if your boys can take care of business against the Orioles, then, they'll certainly be happy.
Listen, it just sets up perfectly, like for those two teams to split, and then the Yankees to sweep the Orioles, and then Goz to cry.
Geez, sweep the Orioles. They might put up an effort, I hope. Come on, O's.
Oh, man. Well, they'll definitely put up the effort.
Jeez, Buster.
Buster. That's like the nice way of Buster going, don't get excited, Goz.
Yeah, right, exactly. It's funny because who was it? I think someone on our podcast today, I mentioned as like, boy, this is a Christians and Lions situation with the Orioles and the Yankees this week. And he goes, what do you mean, Christians? And I was like, yeah, Christians and Lions. And
and then you had to show him an old movie to get him to understand.
I know. And then you realize, man, I'm just a nerd, and I know a bunch of stuff no one cares about.
I know and care, so we can nerd out together, my friend. I look forward to talking to you next week. Safe travels wherever you're headed, my friend.
Okay, I appreciate it, guys.